Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome here at Crypto Hash Review, where we educate and disseminate information about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies from Muslim perspective. And yesterday we had a historic moment occur. Bitcoin was deemed to be legal tender in El Salvador. It was made legal mandate now to accept Bitcoin in the shops and whatnot. And we're going to discuss this in more detail, where they interviewed one of the Bitcoiners, the leader of Strike, which is a company which is using the Lightning Network to facilitate transactions across borders and so on and so forth. He interviewed him whilst the law was actually being passed, actually live. So I want to just do a brief summary of some of the key points that we got from this, and so what can we take from this. I do apologize that this wasn't released on the same day, even from the last week. Actually, we haven't had any videos being released. Been very busy, and even yesterday, I actually recorded this twice. So I'm actually saying this the third time. Each time they had an issue with my camera. Maybe it's time to upgrade. Anyway, so the first point to mention that it being legal tender basically means that if you was to go to any shop, McDonald's, Apple Store, local butcher, if you want to pay for your stuff in Bitcoin, they now have to, by law, accept the Bitcoin. So that's what it means by being legal tender. Just like in the UK, he mentioned that just like in Mexico, if you pay for things in pesos, if you don't want to pay in pesos, if the person doesn't want to accept the peso, they have to take it by law. So that's one of the things that the governments are allowed to do, or not allowed to do, but governments do, is that they force people to accept a certain currency, and people accept it. Now, you never really, I'm guessing you never thought about it, but if you had your own business in the UK and you refuse to take the pound, they can take it to court and say, look, this person refused to take payment, and you could be, I don't know, fined or whatnot. Anyway, so he even mentioned as an example that if you have a loan, for example, that was taken out 10 years ago, you can actually pay back the loan in Bitcoin. So that's interesting. He did mention that it would take about 90 days for the country to finalize the infrastructure to allow the whole country to accept Bitcoin. And we have more details on that later on, what he means by that. But as of yesterday, it is now fully legal tender, along with the dollar. So it's going to be a dual currency system. You have the US dollar as a currency as well as the Bitcoin. Also, he says that, so he mentioned that if you want to use foreign currencies like euros or pounds in El Salvador, you could. It's possible, but no one has to by law to accept it. Whereas by Bitcoin now, they actually have to accept it, which is actually amazing to think about. That Bitcoin has more legal weight in El Salvador than even the pound and the euro. That's amazing. Lovely, lovely. Also, he was asked about, he was mentioning about permanent residency for entrepreneurs and investors. So they want to, the first thing they want to do, basically the point is they want to introduce Bitcoin into the economy because they believe that Bitcoin will help improve the economy of El Salvador. And one way in which they plan to do so is through investment. So people want to build on top of the Bitcoin network, establish their business on top of Bitcoin. Then basically they can come and move to El Salvador, and they'll give them permanent residency to do so. That's amazing. And on top of that, the investment will be pegged to Bitcoin. So, for example, he mentioned here that it'd be 3 Bitcoin will be the investment amount. So if you invest 3 Bitcoin in a country, you get permanent residency. Now, it's not clear at this moment anyway, if that's to do with if you buy a house worth 3 Bitcoin or more, or if you just set up a business with that, or you have to actually give it to the government. The details not clear, but 3 Bitcoin is the limit at the moment for either citizenship or permanent residency, if they're both the same, it depends. It is possible to have permanent residency and not be citizen, so it depends what he means by that. It's all very new. And even he said the limits of this is not really known. This is some preliminary ideas they have to bring new business into the country, but this is some of the stuff that they have. And he mentioned a very good point here, which I always say to people: 1 Bitcoin is equal to 1 Bitcoin. So they're pegging this investment opportunity to Bitcoin. So if the price of Bitcoin goes up or the price of Bitcoin goes down, you still have to give them 3 Bitcoin. So as opposed to, for example, like in Turkey, for example, if you want to invest in Turkey, buy a property and get citizenship there, you have to buy property or properties worth $250,000. Whether the price of the lira goes up or down is pegged to the dollar. So same thing here. This one is pegged to Bitcoin. And obviously they're gonna put a lot of effort into promoting business for Bitcoin and infrastructure and internet and so on and so forth. So that's really, really, really good news for El Salvador. He was asked, has the USA or the IMF contacted him about what he mentioned about this new law? And he said, yeah, actually, he has got a call meeting with the IMF today, Thursday. But he said that he's all he's going to do is tell them that nothing's changed on a macro level. How they run the economy, how they do things, nothing's changed. It's just that they're adding this. So from the things that they want to do is improve their remittance. So I think something like 40% or 30% of their money that comes into the country, the GDP, is through Salvadorians who live abroad, who send money in. And through things like Western Union and other kind of things, they've been charged a lot, probably even up to half of what's been sent just to get money to El Salvador. So with this, money can come into the country with near to zero fees using the Lightning Network. So that's one of the things that they're going to immediately receive benefits to their country through cheaper remittance. Anyway, so the point is, just want to use this to promote business and bringing money into the country, which is something that I thought once countries start seeing this happen in Salvador and how it improves their lives, others are going to see the same. He said it shouldn't be something that is met with skepticism. It should be something that they support and help, because obviously it's up to them to. It's in their best interest that El Salvador improves its financial situation, and it should meet this with optimism and so on. So that's kind of what his view was. Someone asked him, "Is this part of a de-dollarization strategy? As in, are they trying to move away from the dollar?" And the reason why they asked that question is because El Salvador doesn't actually have its own currency. It uses the US dollar as their currency. So the question was, are they going to move away from the dollar over to the Bitcoin? And he said, no, it's not that at all. So when El Salvador first moved towards adopting the dollar standard in this country, the move was to get investors into the country. So the primary reason for them moving to the dollar was so that if they had the same currency as America, therefore Americans should and would invest into their country, knowing that the currency is maintained. If you're American, you want to invest in El Salvador and you have their own currency, then the question would be: is the currency going to be maintained? Are they going to maintain its value, or am I going to lose value? And that's one of the concerns about having business things up in a place like Turkey. Imagine you have a clothes shop and your profit margin is about 10%, and you're selling clothes, and then all of a sudden the currency drops by 10%. Essentially, all your profits are gone by the currency dropping. So those are our concerns, currency concerns. So they said if they made the same as America, then Americans will invest, and there won't be any concern in that one. So that was the motivation for going to the dollar in the first place. But he said in the interview that adding Bitcoin to this is now gonna be the same as that, but on steroids. That's the words he used. So he said that if they expected to bring money into the country through dollars, then with Bitcoin it should bring even more money to the country. So he felt even more positive about Bitcoin coming to the country more than just the idea of the dollars. And also because there were many projects by Bitcoiners in El Salvador to try and educate the locals how to use Bitcoin, how to have wallets, how to buy and sell in Bitcoin, and that kind of inspired him to move towards this move. Someone asked the president about his own personal story. Has he had a journey in Bitcoin? And he didn't really answer that about himself. He even said it's not about him and how much Bitcoin he has or doesn't have. He said when he was young, he always had the view of the future being positive: flying cars, space travel, world peace. But if you ask the youth of today, what do they feel about the future? It's usually very negative. Nuclear war, disasters, some kind of dystopian idea. So he wants to revitalize positivity in the Ummah, and not the Ummah, but in his nation. And he feels that Bitcoin is the way forward to try and do so, because with the current system of fiat, with money printing, when the money gets printed and given to those who are closest to the printing press, as he said, it increases the gap between the rich and the poor. He feels that Bitcoin closes that gap because everyone has access to a level playing field. Anyone can access a Bitcoin account. You don't have to be a special rich person like you need to be for a Swiss account or a JP Morgan account or a Goldman Sachs account. Anyone can access the Bitcoin network and take benefits from that. Not to mention, he mentioned that the Bitcoin network is not diluted. For the Federal Reserve, for example, that money is diluted. So, for example, one of the things he's referring to here is when America prints off money and they give it to their people, the El Salvadorians don't get new money, but yet they're still using a dollar. So the dollars they have is losing value, but they're not getting any of that printed money. So that's kind of what he's saying, which is true. And obviously he wants El Salvador to be the beacon for cryptocurrencies in the future moving forward. One of the questions that were asked was, will people be free to use their own wallets, or do they have to use a government type wallet? And he said basically it's going to be free. Bitcoin will be free and open to use without any restrictions. You can use your own wallet, you can use a government wallet, there's going to be no restrictions whatsoever. Now they are developing a government-based wallet, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. But you can use any wallet. So if I was to get in a plane right here and go to El Salvador with my own Bitcoin, I could spend it just like that straight off the plane. Beautiful, no exchange rate or anything like that. And what's interesting is that if you have, for example, Ethereum, it's not difficult to get Ethereum into Bitcoin and then spend it straight away. You don't have to go to any exchange rate, you can do it online. And also he mentioned that someone said to him, some may say, what money laundering? Are there any concerns in terms of money laundering? He said, look, the cartels that already use dollars. So why is there any more of an issue with Bitcoin? They already used what they have already, which is dollars. So there's no reason to say that the Bitcoin will be anything more. Anything will be used to launder money, gold, diamonds, whatever. So basically, he's leaning on the side of freedom. He wants people to be free and not let the crimes of a few hinder the abilities of the remaining, or the majority even. One of the things he mentioned is that if merchants don't want to take on the risk of receiving Bitcoin, so they don't want to take a Bitcoin payment transaction, then the price of Bitcoin goes down. That's always people think go down, but you could. They would facilitate that by allowing those who opt out to have that automatically converted into dollars, which we'll talk about in a minute. So yeah, it's not that they're forcing everyone to hodl Bitcoin. If you don't want to hodl it, you don't. They will take it. The government is saying we will willingly take it off your hands at the point of sale, but you still have to accept it. So that's a nice little thing there. What else? And yeah, one really interesting thing here is that the government are going to take initiatives to try and help everyone get connected. So if someone's too poor to have a mobile phone, a smartphone that has a wallet, the government will provide them smartphones so they can have a wallet and they can transact. That's amazing. So they're going to make an app and they're going to have phones to give people to use on their phones. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Someone asked about property laws in terms of ownership. Would people be able to own Bitcoin fully 100%? And he said, yeah. He said that at the end of the day, the central banks won't have any control over Bitcoin, anyone's Bitcoin, nor would the Federal Reserve. So basically, the way it works is that they will make a fund, and they'll fund it, or a trust fund, of $150 million there. And anyone who doesn't wish to take on the risk of Bitcoin at point of sale, then they can opt out. And in the app itself, it will automatically convert to dollars. Where that dollars come from? Come from the trust fund. So if you can imagine a trust fund has $150 million and no Bitcoin. And as people are transacting and whatnot, some may not want to keep the Bitcoin. It will be converted automatically to dollars. So some of the dollars will come from here and they will gradually build up their Bitcoin amount. So over time, the Bitcoin amount would increase and the dollar amount would decrease from the trust fund. But this trust fund is not owned by the central bank or by the Federal Reserve. So it's something that you can own yourself. Like I said, you don't have to have that. If you want to accept the Bitcoin yourself, you own one, you can do that. But that's just an option available for people to have. And everyone have full ownership of their Bitcoin. He was asked, this is an interesting one, he was asked, would the government be mining Bitcoin? And he said, to be honest, he never thought about it until the question was just asked, which is really amazing, because literally it was live in the interview that idea came to him. And they said every day there are new ideas of the government, how they can use Bitcoin to generate more income for the government. And there is a geothermal power plant, basically using the heat from volcanoes to turn water into steam and to turn turbines and generate electricity that they had. And it's quite far from the city. And transporting that electricity to the city, you lose a lot of the energy that's made. So you lose value. So they were thinking of making like an industrial park where people can come and build their factories or build their business around that area and get direct access to electricity. But as he's thinking about it now, as this question came up this year, there's no reason why you can't come and have your mining farm. So he's saying basically we're gonna open. He said that we might as well just open it up for miners when they come and build a mining farm, and they can mine Bitcoin straight from the volcano. And an array of memes came out at the time saying, "Oh, this is Bitcoin come from volcanoes." It was a funny little meme. And within a day, you already publish pictures on Twitter saying, "Look, here's the factory or the power plant," and yeah, they're basically making it available for anyone who wants to mine Bitcoin using that electricity and get cheap electricity. Then come, amazing. It's amazing how quick they can use. Maybe because they're small as a country, they can move faster. But yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of things that they can do to generate income for the country. And I think once El Salvador does actually start generating some serious cash, a lot of other countries are going to be saying, well, we want a part of this as well. And it'll be a mad rush. He was asked about the community, what can the Bitcoin community do to support El Salvador? And he basically said, look, they're going to be under attack through misinformation or whatnot. And it's obviously up to them and us to try and put things straight for people. And I think that's true. That's why we have this channel here, to help educate people and then educate them on what Bitcoin is, what you can do with it, and to remove the misinformation and deliberate lies that are around there, which is quite common. One of the questions that was asked was the prospect of the dollar inflating, was that a motivation to move to Bitcoin? And he said outright no. He said the decision was because of the benefits that Bitcoin brings, not because of the potential harms or fear of harm from the US dollar. That's what he said. And that's something. What was interesting about this is that he's putting forward a parallel proposal, which I'm not sure if any country actually does that, but allows two separate currencies to work in their country. But that's the first time I've heard of it. We literally have the US dollar as their currency and Bitcoin, so you can use either one, and both of them you have to accept. And if you don't want to take the responsibility of keeping the Bitcoin on your balance sheet, then the government itself will take on the responsibility to convert it to dollars. And also one thing is that you mentioned that this is only in terms of acceptance and transacting. In terms of accounting, like if you were to do accounts, it will be only in US dollars. So the unit of account for accounting purposes is in dollars, but as transactions in Bitcoin. And there's no capital gains tax. So I'll give you a scenario. If you have a business and you receive payment in Bitcoin, you would write down in your accounts the dollar value. If the price of Bitcoin went up 10 times, your accounts still has the dollar value. So you don't pay tax on the increase. That's amazing. And obviously, it's the opposite is true. So if you received it in dollars and the price of Bitcoin went down, it's still in dollar value. I'm assuming that's the case. But the point is, there's no capital gains tax on Bitcoin over there. He was asked about the other countries that have been signaling their support for Bitcoin, and he said, yeah, he's not really neither here nor there in terms of how he feels, because it's all very new. But inshallah, hopefully him and others will embrace, how newer countries embrace it, and hopefully will remain steadfast in this endeavor, because it is a new thing. He is literally the first person. So this is very sensitive now. He has to work out, otherwise people are going to ridicule and laugh at him, which I'm sure is a fear for most people. Last couple of points. Was it difficult to convince other politicians? In summary, no, it wasn't, because he's got a 95% approval rate from the people. So, and even when they voted, it was like 62 votes out of 84. So they got a super majority anyway. So it was something that they all were on board on. And finally, would it be taking any Bitcoin on their balance sheet? And the answer was at the moment, no. They have no plans to convert any of their US dollar reserves into Bitcoin. But there's no reason why they won't do it in the future. But at the moment now, there's no plans to do so. I suspect with that trust fund, as it builds up its Bitcoin reserves, when it comes time to top it up, I'm sure the Bitcoin, they might use that reserves they have to top it up and then replace that with the Bitcoin they have. It's possible they can gradually build up their Bitcoin reserves. And interesting enough, it'll be an amazing kind of way of dollar cost averaging. So as people use and do transactions, and the government slowly takes their Bitcoin off of them, as in they don't want it, keep it, so they give it to the government. So therefore, every day, no matter what the price of Bitcoin is, they're accumulating Bitcoin. on a slow, steady pace, which is what I'm always advising you to do. Slow, steady accumulation of Bitcoin through dollar cost averaging. There's no need to buy a big lump sum in one go and then take the risk. Just every day, bit by bit, and therefore you smooth on off the volatility. So that's actually an interesting way of doing DCA on a national level. But at the moment, there's nothing like that. Only the small transactions, they'll go into the trust fund, and then some of the dollars will go out, and then whatever the case may be. But yeah, so hopefully, who are the next countries? Brazil has signaled interest. Paraguay has signaled interest. Argentina has signaled interest. Even another one called Tonga has signaled interest. That's 4 others. If it materializes anything, that'd be amazing. That'd be 5 countries. And if 5 countries then literally an avalanche, I'm assuming, will happen. I'm looking at a Muslim country to take that on board. Maybe look at what they've done, and maybe say, look, this is a good idea. Let's do the same. Why not? And the good thing about his approach is that, which is a very innovative approach, is that they're not actually dropping their currency and adopting a new one. They're just saying, look, we'll just have both, and that is actually amazing. So therefore, you can, if the American dollar in the next year, 2, 3, 4 years does actually die, the country doesn't have to say, oh, all our money's gone. They've still got another currency parallel to that functioning perfectly fine, which is Bitcoin. So that's actually an amazing idea. I suspect Pakistan or Iran, the 2 countries that have actually began mining Bitcoin themselves, would maybe be the first ones to adopt it. Maybe UAE, who hasn't really, I mean, they generally want to invite technology and investment, but they haven't really signaled anything beyond that. But we'll see how it happens. What's interesting, however, are those who were against Bitcoin, like from scholars saying, oh, it's haram, no government supports it. I wonder what their stance is now that the government has said it's legal tender and you must use it. Is it the case now that it is now halal because some government, a Kafir government even, has said, oh, it's legal tender, or maybe is it not legal tender, or maybe we don't listen to them, and therefore it's still haram. So therefore, if you go to El Salvador, you're forced to take haram. I mean, anyway, the idea that somehow a currency is haram to have because a government doesn't support it is ridiculous in my view. But now that a government does, I wonder what they have to say about that. As every day goes by, one by one, these excuses to say because haram is being knocked aside. And there are no more excuses left, to be honest. Even the excuse that Bitcoin wastes electricity. We've got Volcano now, Bitcoin. So what do you have to say? Anyway, hopefully now, inshallah, we'll have more regular videos again. So apologies about the delay. It's just been busy with other things. And inshallah, we'll see you in the future. I hope if you like the video, subscribe to our channel. Click on the like button. And may Allah give you plenty Bitcoin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.